If you're an online business or a remote salesperson and you do a lot of video conferencing like Zoom or Google Meets or anything like that, then it pays to have a good setup. So I've been asked this question a lot by my network about what sort of gear I use. So in this video, I'm going to take you through the setup that I have in my own office, including the lights, the cameras, so that you know what sort of equipment that you can use to be able to present really good videos on Zoom. Now, are you going to make more money by having a good setup? Then probably not. You still need some skill to be able to bring clients on board, but this does give you a good first impression. Just for some backstory, I'm definitely not a video expert, but I do know a thing or two about cameras and lighting. I did spend some time as a professional photographer of motorcycle racing. So the concepts are fairly similar. There's just a couple of nuances with the setup, but to show you around on what I use for my day-to-day Zoom, thing that we're recording right now is the Sony ZV-E10. This is my go-to camera for Zoom videos, for recording videos, for training or anything else like that. And I've started using it for some of the podcasts that I do as well. I would say it's probably the best value camera that's out there. It's around about 1,100 Australian dollars, maybe about 800 US dollars, depending where you are. It's really good value for what you actually get from it. It does come with a lens and everything else, and it allows you to plug straight into your computer and use it as a USB camera. Now, I wouldn't suggest that you use the standard USB that it comes out to. What I do suggest is you get this adapter called the CamLink 4K. And what it does is it turns this camera or whatever camera that you have from HDMI to USB so that you can use it as a USB camera. Now, the benefit of using this CamLink 4K with this particular setup is that you get to use the maximum output of the camera. If you use the standard USB that goes from the ZV-E10 straight to your computer, it does limit it to 720p when this thing can actually do 4K. Now, the camera that I use for most of the podcasts that I record is the Sony A7iii with a 24mm G Master lens on it. I love this camera. This is what I use professionally for quite a long period of time. Although I will say that the ZV-E10 does a pretty good job, even with the kit lens that it has, and it's easier to use, it's easier to plug in. So now that you have a good alternative to the standard webcams and your computer webcam, the next thing to do is to get some really, really good lighting. Now, the lighting that I use is a LCD panel, a Godox 150. It's something that I've had for a while. It's just a rectangle panel that sits about 45 degrees from where I'm at. The good thing about this particular light is it does come with this remote. You can turn it off, turn it on, dial the brightness up and down. And the good thing about it too is it's pretty portable. The best thing you can do though when you have a light like this is to be able to put something around it so that it diffuses or softens the light. Now, I have a lot of equipment that I've used in the past, so I've been able to use some of those diffusers to go over this particular light. But if you want an alternative or a cheap alternative, you could go to a store that maybe you get some white curtain and wrap it around a couple of times, and you'll see the difference in how soft the light gets, and it also fills in a little bit better space. One thing to note is how I mount all the cameras and all the lights as well. I use a stand-up desk, so anytime that it goes up and down, usually if you're using a stand on the ground, you have to adjust it and make the thing move around. So what I ended up doing, especially with the light, is actually use a microphone stand that adjusts up and down, side to side, so that even when the table goes up, the placement of the light stays exactly where it should be relative to where I am. As far as the cameras are concerned, what you'll see here is a couple of desk stands where I can sit these cameras, and I don't have to move the mounting up or down side by side or anything like that. If the table moves up, it follows through. If the table moves down, it remains in exactly the same position. Now, one of the things I really struggle with when it comes to watching videos is poor audio. I have a couple of mics that I use, one for the podcast, which is the Shure MV7. It's a USB microphone that just plugs straight into your computer, and the other one is the Rode NT-USB. This is the one we're recording with right now. This is my day-to-day microphone that I use. So it sits out of the way. It's not really in frame or anything like that. And out of the Shure MV7 and the Rode microphone, the Rode one is a lot louder without having to manipulate the audio, so that if you are doing live, you don't have to turn the gains up or anything like that too much. It gives you some really good and clear volume and audio so that it's a pleasant experience for the other person. And of course, if you've got a good setup, if you're not using the settings properly, it's really not going to do you any favors. So what I typically use for the videos that I have, particularly on Zoom, is what you can see on screen. If you look up to this side, it says 30p. There's a different setting that you can use, which is 24p. That gives you a more cinematic look. but 30p is usually the one that I would use. That's 30 frames per second that this runs. And on the bottom here, which says 1/60, that's your shutter speed relative to the frame rate. Usually you'll double your shutter speed based on the frame rate that you have. So if we're running 30 at the moment, I'll do 1/60. If I'm running at 24, I'll typically do 1/50 at that point. Now, everything else your camera can do, it's pretty smart, pretty intuitive. You can play around with ISO and everything else like that, just to make sure that the levels of light stay consistent and they don't start changing. That's the problem if you have and you're using auto adjustments on the camera. Sometimes you could be filming like this, and then all of a sudden the lights will change, and then you'll have a different view altogether. So that's pretty much it. I don't have a lot of other stuff. There's a couple of lights behind me that you can see, but I mainly use this light whenever I'm on Zoom. I don't typically turn on the backlights. It attracts a little bit too much attention, but when I'm making videos, I like to have them just for a bit of fun and just a little bit more appealing. But generally speaking, I just have the one light that goes on, gives really clear, good video through the ZV-E10. Then we go through the microphone, which then gives a little bit better experience as far as the auditory is concerned, and everything runs pretty smoothly. I can take this setup pretty easily whenever I'm traveling or I'm working remotely. I'll typically have my MacBook, which I'm running it through, the camera just on a tripod, and I usually just use the MacBook microphone. That's typically pretty good if you're traveling. I don't necessarily have to bring the Rode or the Shure microphone unless I'm recording a particular type of podcast. Otherwise, I run pretty standard with my equipment. I just keep it really simple and just make sure that I'm present and people can hear me really clear. So that's it. I hope that helps. I've been asked this question a few times now of what equipment I'm using whenever I'm doing my videos, whenever I'm on Zoom. It's really simple. You just keep one really good camera. You have the kit lens that goes with it, which is the ZV-E10, and just making sure that you've got good audio. That's really the thing. Lighting, it's always going to be important. If you don't have access to light like this, having the window light come through at maybe even 45 degrees, if not directly in front of you, is better than having the window behind you where you're getting a lot of backlight and not really anything filling your face. If you like this video, hit the like and subscribe button so that you can follow along. Usually I'm talking more about sales and business growth than just equipment, but I've been asked this question a few times now. So I hope that helps. If you've got any questions, just hit me up via DM, message on the website or anything like that. But until then, I will see you in the next one.